Hey, so I I have a job. I do have a job, and but I haven't been working for the last week and a half because the job is keeps on calling me, telling me not to do the job. So I've been doing this whole thing where I just like stay in a cabin in the summer, and I just keep on staying in the cabin and start to root around in things, kind of like a cross between like some sort of mole that's groping for tubers and that Jack guy from The Shining. There's like a mixture of those two things. So what I've been rooting around and like watching is this walkaway campaign, and I did a little video about that where I just responded to the videos that I've seen of other people, just this collection of about 40 videos. There's a lot more now on YouTube and on Facebook, and I felt there was so much idiosyncrasy, so much weirdness, so much honesty in every person's position that it was fascinating. I felt that there was a lot of potential in there for relatedness in a political manner, right? Which goes to say a bunch of people trying to talk through things from an honest position. And by honest, we also mean weird, because everybody's got a different frame. So what's going on with this movement that other YouTube commenters have been commenting on is that a few weeks ago, very recently, actually, this walkaway movement was accused of being Russian bots, right? So that's the story, that they're Russian bots. And there's this Salon article that was posted July 9th, which was a couple days ago, that references a Huffington Post article from the 8th, which is the day before, which is Sunday, which references in turn this Arc Digital article, which was posted on July 5th, which in turn references, this is the hardest data that's at the end of this, like this kind of like this response and this referencing of referencing. The hardest piece of data that I found is this website called Hamilton 68 by the so-called bipartisan group calling itself Alliance for Securing Democracy. And what these guys do is they have like a list of like 600 like known tweeting bots, and they analyze these 600 tweeting bots, and then they hash through the hashtags and whatever. And so according to their analysis of this walkaway hashtag, basically there were some bots that were retweeting it, but this is a quote, "The late engagement suggests Kremlin-oriented accounts are trailers rather than leaders of the campaign," which goes to say that these bot accounts were following the hashtag. They didn't start the hashtag, comma, "but the high level of current engagement indicates an effort to astroturf support for the movement and hijack the narrative." So there's the possibility that Russia might be trying to use this for some ends, for political gain, right? So that's the hardest piece of data, that all these things are going on. So what happened is that on Our Politics, in Reddit Our Politics, that Salon article's leaked, and Our Politics gets really in a huff. They're like, oh my God, Russian bots, they're coming after us, and they're trying to like, blow things out of proportion, and they go on about Russia, and everybody's like, oh no, there's bots in the mix, and some people speak up, but mostly in Our Politics, because of the state of our politics right now, it's very leftist, it's very anti-Trump, probably more than anything else. So that sparks a bunch of debate, and then what happens is, in this like the lowest quality possible form of current discourse would have to be the meme, right? So in this other Reddit, which is much more popular, well, I mean, it's of course it's popular than Politics, but Politics has 4 million readers, and Advice Animals has 5 million readers. So Our Politics is bigger, but Advice Animals is lower in the amount of discourse you're going to get out of the main form of discussion, which is are these pictures. What am I talking about? Anyway, so there's this picture. It's called a meme because it's got impact font, and then there's this this meme face, which is like a joyous sea lion or something like that, and the text reads, when /r walkaway, a fast-growing sub for former liberals who have become Trump supporters, fucking immediately gets busted for being a pathetically transparent scam by Russian trolls. Now, there's no reference at all. It's just this accusation that this other Reddit sub, right? So there's Reddit and then there's all these different forums. This other sub was growing fast, but it was immediately busted for being a pathetically transparent scam by Russian trolls. There's no references, though. Somebody, this guy named Jack Sup with 3 X's, he writes, he talks about the Salon piece and then the Huffington Post piece, and then he eventually gets to Hamilton 68. Right. And he basically repeats what I just said, that there's only a likelihood that some of it might be taken advantage of by these Russian bots. But that doesn't mean that you can say that it's not authentic. But the Reddit mind is now infected, and the Reddit mind is just a hive of mind. Now it's infected with this question of the legitimacy of other Redditors. And it's always there, but now conspiracy and utter, like just radical suspicion, like cynical suspicion, is now invested into the dialogue that the walkaway movement is about, right? So there's, it's not even about what the walkaway movement is about is now infected, basically, with a bunch of people calling each other fake, right? Now, another thing that happens in another Reddit, which is a subreddit, which is a lot smaller, it's got like 90,000 readers, is that somebody, the top minds of Reddit, calls out this bot, and this is where the brigading, I always have a hard time. This is where like a bunch of different other Reddits start to single out this r walkaway Reddit, and then they eventually get enough people going on there and trolling it, and basically performing in bad faith with the people on the actual walkaway site and downvoting everything. There's like, I didn't save this page, but yesterday they had downvoted everything in this walkaway movement, and then this other conservative contingent of Reddit comes in and bolsters everything up. Now the quality of the walkaway subreddit, let's see if Reddit's gonna, they have this, they broke their own website, so I never know which page I'm gonna get. Now this walkaway subreddit, the quality of discourse is, it's been reduced to memes, right? And the thing is people are still engaged in conversation, but the top of the post is usually a picture or some sort of a strong statement, and then people talk about it down below. So there's a lot of arguing and stuff going on back and forth about this. Like the top voted post right now is a bunch of Trump supporters who have been beaten up, right? So this is the level of discourse now. We're no longer where I started on my journey into this, with just honest people just having discourse. And I think that that has something to do with the translation. I really do believe it has to do with the translation into text. Once we start to communicate through the written word, that leaves out so much information and allows those gaps in information, which would be the authenticity of the other, and that gap is now filled with different motives. It's much more easily filled with suspicion as well as agreement too. People can really get together. That's it's not all about cynicism. Like that's what an echo chamber does, is that a bunch of people interact in a way in which they agree. And agreement is basically the money that they're transacting with, right? And they post things and then they shuffle around with agreement. And then at other times in online communication, people will start to shuffle around in disagreement and start to argue. And then the argument can take all these different forms of quality, of course, right? So they can go into just rude insults and all that trolling stuff. But, and plus, because it's a slower medium, like if you start following a thread, you have to be sure at the beginning if it's going to go anywhere, because you're just going to spend all this time trying to get to the actual argument. And so I think what we really need to do, and I think we're forming this subconsciously, but I think that something that might be very necessary in high school education is reading comprehension. And this reading comprehension now is so complex because you have to postulate all these different interlocutors, all these different people speaking, and you have to postulate what that other is, and you don't know because it's a sample, it's a blind sample of millions and millions of other people from all these other, you know, backgrounds and ways of looking at things, and not to mention languages, right? But beyond just languages, there's all that information that's left out. So being able to surf through the public discourse in this limited fashion is it takes a certain, it only becomes with text, it only becomes productive when things, of course, are slowed down. When they're slowed down, then we can actually look at things, look at people, judge their character, judge their tone, you know, when discourse is slowed down like that. And plus, it allows us to not just be in a complete reactive state and just simply going with things that I agree with and against things that I disagree with. And instead of participating strongly in that transaction will always be there. It's always important that we disagree. That's a mode of generating knowledge, is disagreement. It's a seesaw. Right? And agreement can be that way too. But if those things are too strong, then that, of course, makes the transaction too rowdy for deeper levels of nuance, right? So if nuance comes when people slow down and allow something to actually be revealed. So anyways, this whole thing about the bots it's just a weird way of derailing the whole experience. And so what I do at the end when I start playing this conspiracy game is like, okay, well, if Salon is accusing, and Huffington Post is accusing this work of being by bots, like, are they not trying to participate in the exact same thing that the bots are supposedly participating in? They're trying to spin a story too, right? Just as much as the robots are trying to spin this story, or whoever's on the other side of that. So immediately when you enter into this debate, you erode your own position when you make this accusation. Not to say that this accusation doesn't have something to say. Yeah, okay. Our media is, because there's such blindness involved in our communication, people don't have to be what they say to be. And they can completely lie and try to influence things and play all these games. Of course, all these games are going on. But what we need to do is to return to a mode of discourse that will allow us to strain the motives from all this information, from all of this data that is being spat at us by all these different sources now, all these different sources. So anyways, I still think that the walkaway movement, I don't know, right? Is it anything now? Is it nothing? Is it everything? Right? Is it a fad? Is it fantastic? I don't know. But I think that I still do think that there is something that should be talked about. And actually, I saw on Twitter that Brett Weinstein and Katie Herzog are basically saying, you know, we don't need to walk away. Like, it's wrong to walk away. It's wrong to quit the whole project. And actually, there's people on Reddit that are for this movement that are saying that I'm not walking away to something else. Like that I'll just read this. I'll leave you with this piece of poetry that I found, like, just randomly in the middle of one of these subreddits on this walkaway movement. This guy just bursts out into poetry. So, Nomification wrote, "You're stuck in the group thinking of the left, the identity politics. You don't have to walk to something. You don't have to belong to a group. You don't have to define yourself by anyone else, and least of all, another group. We are individuals. We walk with ourselves through the ever-changing perception of life that we all possess. But although we walk with ourselves, we rarely walk alone." This guy's so sincere. "We walk with one idea proposed by a friend, and another idea proposed by a book. We walk with those we've previously agreed with, but also with those we've previously disagreed with. We walk for freedom, for our rights, and for our beliefs. But most important of all is that when we walk, it's never to stop someone else from walking." So I think at the end, I think this is a veiled reference to freedom of speech. I think in the end, this guy, you just replace the word walking with talking, and then you get his true meaning. That's when it really releases. So I'll read that last line, and you'll see like what he's actually talking about. We talk for freedom, for our rights, and for our beliefs. But most important of all is that when we talk, it's never to stop someone else from talking. And I'll leave you with that and a little bit of kitty video. And a little bit of kitty video. That's a nice sentence. And a little bit of kitty video.